Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. The Wasteless World Talks are here with Kevin and Bill and myself today. And we will have a special topic today. And I know both of them will love it, so as you will. We will speak about intelligence. And I will explain later on what was the reason. But let me ask you, Kevin, first. What is intelligence for you? I don't ask the scholarship or the definitions. No, what for you is the word intelligence, what it stands for?
I think it's the ability to be sensitive about something. Mm-hmm. So it may sound quite strange, but I think that, for example, measuring intelligence by IQ is not the right way to go about things. There's only one kind of intelligence, but there's emotional intelligence, there's foresight intelligence, there's perception intelligence, there's pattern recognition intelligence. There's so many different ways to be intelligent. It just means to be good at something. But that something shouldn't be defined. It should be open to everybody to be good at what they're good at.
That's interesting. What about you, Bill?
I don't think I can add anything to that. That's good. I'll go with Kevin.
Okay. And then let's say we know, and there is a lot of discussion about the artificial intelligence, let's say connected to computer, if we say. Then we use in Industry 5.0, we use the term natural intelligence. And I think this is what Kevin just described. And today in the noon session, generally, we opened one more topic, and there was a big question mark. How you will call, or is there any name for the intelligence you gather or you collect during your school time? Because I don't think that during the school time you collect, or at least 3 of us, there has been no computers at the time. So we cannot collect artificial intelligence if we take it in a current point of view. And I don't think we gathered natural intelligence. So how will you call it? Should there be a special name for this type of intelligence?
Academic intelligence, I think you suggested another time, Michael. There's a lot about how we learn in a school setting that doesn't properly fit under intelligence. It's mind thought, mind control. It's taking away the innate creativity and trying to replace it with, I'll be very crude about it, replace it with what the business people want. Preparing the children, stopping them from being children and turning them into workers. And I'm not absolute about that, but that definitely is a factor in the academic intelligence.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's what you learn in school is to be compliant, to be obedient, and to follow the prescribed thoughts.
I know that we discussed this topic generally in the part about education. I don't know which one it was, but it can be found on the channel. But it's quite interesting because both of you, and not only you, even the people at the noontime, they said generally that in school it's not about intelligence. But that's horrible. Because we put children, the first what we did to them when they are old enough, we put them in the system which generally, in some way, take the natural intelligence away. Or push it down, or I don't know how to, I cannot express it in English the right way, but I think you do understand what I mean. So you enter it with natural intelligence and you leave it after 8, 14, whatever years without it. or with squeezed down because there was something more important which should be implemented in the brains.
So I said I was not absolute about that. I see what you're, I certainly see your point, and there is some amount of cultivating intelligence and cultivating that the schools do, and I don't deny that, and I think that's very valuable. But somehow at the end of that 8 or 12 years, as you're describing, a lot of the inquisitive nature of children is gone. And so, as with most things, there are a list of pros and a list of cons. And that's important as we go into the future of education, that we attempt to have fewer of the cons and more of the pros. But the control and the conforming is, you know, I wonder how much we're wasting in our education system by doing it that way, since this is all about waste anyhow, right?
Yes.
I don't know if I told you this story. I went to school with a kid who came from a very poor background. And he was great because he was really good at mathematics and I wasn't. But he couldn't understand the point of a poem. He could, you know, if he listened to a poem, he couldn't explain the poem. He couldn't explain the emotion or anything like that. And then one day he was no longer in the school, and the headmaster came in and said, yeah, he's not here anymore because we did some tests and he's a mathematics genius. So we've taken him away and put him into a special education course, which was both good and bad because it was great for him. It was good that the state was actually putting him where he should be. But you can be sure there was no state course for poetry geniuses. So, you know, it doesn't have a value. There was so much, like Bill is saying, we waste so many things because we don't have an industrial value on them.
And if he is ever to develop his appreciation for poetry, I'm sure they don't teach poetry at the special mathematics school.
No,
or I would suspect that they don't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One question: have you been in touch with him after the school?
No, no, he vanished entirely. So I imagine at a very young age, he went off to Oxford or Cambridge and was an extremely bright person.
I have a confession, Kevin. When I was in college, I had a very long argument with a professor. It was a professor in creative writing. And I said that there are so many starving people in the world. I can remember saying this. There are so many starving people in the world. Why do we waste time writing more poems? I said that. And it's not the way that you know, it's not my attitude today, but I really believe that.
Yesterday or day before yesterday, the new IPPC report has been published. It's being published since 1988. Last year, it has 3,675 pages, which says, in summary, everything is wars and everything will end when we do not end. No, generally it says everything is worse. And this is a result of every single report, which says the same. The next year, it's even worse. And this year, last year, they published firstly the entire story generally, and then they make it shorter for the politicians, shorter for, I think, media and so on. This year, they published first only the short version for the politicians, 36 pages, which nobody will read generally. So I expect that the size will be even about 5,000 pages or whatever. It's being paid a lot of money to this IPP. It's called, I think, IPPC Institute. Officially, I'm not sure, but I think so. I checked the website. And the school and the universities are preparing students to write stories, but not to deliver results. Story is a result, and that's the issue. I was yesterday on a European Commission webinar on Industry 5.0. It has nothing to do with Industry 5.0, but I was there. They didn't like me, but it's fine. But what was interesting, they announced that there is a first round closed for next funding. You can get lump sum of 50,000 euro without delivering any results. They just give it to you. This project has a budget of 5 million euro. They just give you 50,000, not me generally, because I will not be eligible, I will say, probably. But they just give it, and it will be enough if you write a report about it. No result needs to be delivered. And this is what we do generally. So unfortunately, the schools are preparing for that. They are preparing for pretending doing things. And I do remember when I started my first small job after school, I work in a small car workshop generally as a secretary or something like that, helping there. And I came there was no computer, I think. We write it on a type machine and so on, typewriter. And I finished the first day in 2 hours. And I do remember what the real secretary told me. I told her, I finished. And she said, no, you have to spread your work for 8 hours. This is what you have to learn. That was horrible for me.
One of my first jobs, Michael, similar to that, I worked in a department store, and the two older women. So maybe I was 20 years old, so older woman might be 25 years old. But and there were certain things that we had to do every day. We had to dust, we had to fold the clothes, we had to, and so on, long list, which I accomplished in the first hour or two, as you did. They took me into the back room, these two of them, and I can remember they were both very, good-looking females, and they got very close to me, and they whispered. They didn't speak up. They whispered. They bent over close to my ear and whispered. So there was this allure. I'm thinking, oh, what's? And they said, you have to slow down. It looks bad for the rest of us. I looked. It was as if they were speaking Greek or something. I've never forgot that. It's one of life's little lessons that you have to conform.
Have you the same, Kevin, or are you the only one who never this advice?
No, it's not so much advice, but an observation that the days are going to be really long if you work in a shop. I used to work in a bookshop, and just drag the day out. That was the only thing to do. And so, you could clean all the bookshelves, dust them, put them all back. All you were going to do is get dirty. You wouldn't get any thanks for it. So it was just to move at a pace to go with the slowness of time going by.
So what is the intelligence? Is it to do it slow? Is it the intelligence way, more intelligent way than do it in a right and proper speed and say, okay, we can do more? What is more intelligent?
So that's the question. That's a very good question. And if in fact that's what society is preparing the younger people for, both in school to conform and in those first entry-level jobs to conform, then I keep going back to this question that a business person asked me years ago, and they said, what is the difference between someone a worker who comes in and is just marginally engaged, minimally engaged? They come in, they punch the time clock, and the next person who is fully engaged in the work and thinks how to make the work better, more attractive, more efficient, how to help the company, and so on, fully engaged. What is the difference in the productivity between those two people? And they said to me, do you think it's 20%, 30%? What do you think it is? And I'd never thought about that, even though as a manager, that should be one of the goals, is to get fully engaged people. But and I remember my answer to him. I said, no, it's probably 500 or 1,000% difference between those two people. And if that is the case, then everything, here's a definition of waste. Everything that is less than fully engaged is waste. But then how do you measure it or monetize it? How do you put a value on that? So that's the book is struggling with that question right now.
It's interesting. I had a job working in a British ferry company. We were sailing backwards and forwards from Portsmouth, and they had this policy of hiring staff who would come out of prison, because then the state would pay some of their wages. And the only reason I was working there was because my mum worked there, so she got me the job while I was at art school. And it was quite interesting because these guys were, they had quite wide criminal streak in them. And every time the ship docked, I would always go out and pick up all the teacups and stuff like that. And this was the most unpopular job because it involved a lot of activity, and going backwards and forwards. But what I found out was that a lot of passengers, when they're getting ready to go, they drop money or they leave tips. And so I would go out and I would come back with quite a bit of cash. And these guys, they wouldn't leave me alone for a second because they were convinced I'd found some way of stealing this money. And they needed to know what the intelligence was. And it was quite interesting trying to explain something that it was just a bit of hard work that I managed to dig up this source of cash. But they never believed me. They sort of resented that I wouldn't give away my trade secrets.
So generally, they never tried to do it the same way.
No, it was the most unpopular job. So, of course, and with this honor amongst thieves, whatever we gathered, either legally or otherwise, was always divided up amongst us. So they were happy to let me go out and be the pickpocket, which I wasn't.
But it is exactly this point. So many people say that's wrong without even trying, and you see it on as a managers or politicians. They ask you turn the heat down in your home, but they do not do it in their own. Go in the work on your bike, but they go in a car, and so on generally. So they generally pretend, and I don't think that it is maybe, let's call it the academic intelligence, which make them think this way, it's intelligent way. I generally divide, not in intelligence, this is a new topic for me, but I divide between smart, so smart devices and so on, and wise device. So smartphone is smartphone, but this Nokia is a wise phone because it teaches you that this should be used for calling someone and for communication, not for spending and wasting time on it. And this is, so for me, this is not a dumb phone, but this is really a wise phone, which I recommend everyone. And just now recently, I read an article, how to make your smartphone dumb. Because, and it's easy. No, it's not easy, generally. You have to switch all the notifications. That's the way. And it takes a lot of time. So especially if you have it for a longer time and you use it really frequently, there's a lot of apps, so which you have to switch on. And you cannot do it. There is not a single app, at least for Android, as I know, which will allow you to switch all of them. Of course, you can switch to fly mode, but that's not the way which you would like to, because you need to be somewhere, somehow to be reached by someone. But switching it off, it takes time. But
Michael, do consider the possibility that a type of intelligence might be conformance intelligence. It's a survival mode. I know how to make the boss happy. It's not necessarily how to make the company more efficient or to produce more widgets, but I know how to make the boss happy. And that's a conformance survival sort of intelligence that a lot of people, frankly, don't have, right? But conformance intelligence is something that is taught in the schools. They don't call it that. It's taught by life, it's taught at work, and it's a waste. Generally speaking, it's a waste because you have to then go back and say, what is a team? And are you conforming with the team? And of course, there's a lot of group pressure, but is that conformance? There's a lot of areas here that in order to define in waste in either the schools or in work or something, we would need to get into these nooks and crannies, these small discussions, because I think that there's a tremendous amount of waste. We just have to recognize it, and recognizing it and putting a value on it. So when I wrote the chapter for the book on healthcare, I'm coming up with a figure of 80% waste in all the dollars that are spent on healthcare, and the evaluation of the education industry, as well as the others, the power industry and mobility industry, and the food industry, for crying out loud, which is one of the most eye-opening to me, requires a completely different set of metrics for each one of them. But the exercise of trying to identify and quantify waste is, to me, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. Your turn.
No, I was just thinking about what you were saying before about that there's no real value in teaching poetry when you can be teaching people to feed the world or do whatever. And it reminded me of the British elite schools. And what they're actually teaching is a feral intelligence. They're teaching this 1% of the population go into these schools to grab and take and hold and steal and be as dishonest as you need to achieve whatever it is you want to do. And in a way, that's taking teaching to like the ultimate goal. It is not any high-end goals. It is just to teach the upper class how to hold on to their money and generate more money at everyone else's expense.
You remember that we have touched several times the artificial intelligence. And all of us, we said, okay, we do not have so much experience with that, with ChatGPT and the others. I have it since Sunday. And I send it, I think, to you, Bill. I am not sure if I send it to Kevin as well. You know, I listened to a very interesting podcast. It was in Czech, so I didn't send it out to you, between really experts of artificial intelligence in art. Then it was in other segments. And it was really interesting. So I connected with these guys. And they accepted my LinkedIn invitation. And one of those wrote to me, Michael, I let my AI, he called it his AI generally, to analyze your keynote speech to the deans of universities. And he sent me what the AI says. It was very interesting. So there are three parts: the general part, there are the strength, the weakness, and then the summary. Let me read you the summary, okay? Because I don't know how much time we have, not so much probably, but I will read for you and I will send it out to you after. And generally, for the summary itself, let me, have to make it a little bigger because I don't see so well anymore. So here it is. It says, if I were an artificial intelligence expert, I would consider collaboration with the speaker because his approach to innovation and lifelong learning could be beneficial for the development of new technologies and strategies in the field of sustainability. His experience and viewpoints could offer a fresh perspective on issues and opportunities in artificial intelligence, and his focus on collaboration and efficiency could be an asset to the team. And that was so interesting for me because one of the weaknesses which it picked up was that some parts of the lecture may be difficult to understand or unclear. But the reason why this sentence was there was because I am writing, and you know my speeches, so I am putting the message in between the lines, not only in the words, but in between the lines. And only humans will understand it, and better humans with better experience, but even those without the experience has some of this natural intelligence which help them to understand what I say. So it was really interesting for me. It was generally the first in my lifetime that artificial intelligence rate on my own work. And it does not say it's bullshit or you shouldn't listen because it's imperfect. No, it's generally pick up the topics which I'm proud of. And so it is very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to work with these people if they would like to. It depends on them on this topic. Because I think that as you described the elite schools in the UK, they are similar in the US and all around the globe, I'm sure, that generally that the intelligence, the artificial intelligence can be used for good. And there was in the discussion between, there has been 3 guys discussing before, there was one very interesting topic. They make so-called Havel digitals. You know, the first Czech democracy president Václav Havel general. And they make him digital. So they do it for the students. So the students ask questions and this digital Havel answer them. And they said, and this is a very interesting point, that almost all the teachers and professors who applied in the school ask them whether they can do some person which is negative, like Hitler, like Stalin, like someone like this. And it was very interesting because they are trying right now different type of people and so on. And my what I would like to do with them, because all the people they selected are dead already. So the only thing which you can do, you can listen to them in some movies or whatever, you can read some of their work. But what I would like to suggest, I know it will sound crazy, I would like to suggest make Michael Rada digital. Because I will be able to provide the answers. Right now, I do not want to compete. I just would like to see, to compare whether the students will ask different questions, digital Michael, than the real one, and whether our answers will be so different. So I will try to play it in this way. I don't know whether they would accept it or not. It must cost probably some money, I'm not sure. To them, not to me. But it will be very interesting, you know. It's like to having this digital twin, but in a real life. So right now, I think I'm so crazy that the artificial intelligence will not be able to deliver similar stuff. I'm not sure, you know.
So, so keep us informed on that because that's fascinating as you describe it. One of the things that one of the comments that the AI said about your presentation was that sometimes it is confusing or not clear, which is actually a strength.
Yeah,
it's a strength that the sentient AI does not cannot comprehend. It would be interesting for the people, the AI people that you're talking to do that study to digitize Mike Rada, and then to compare the different questions that are asked because I think that the people who ask the questions would view a human Michael Rada perhaps giving too much validity to a artificial intelligence Michael Rada, so they might ask more difficult questions. But also the answers that you would give versus the answers that a digitized Michael Rada would give. The digitalized Michael Rada will not say, I hope, I feel, I empathize, and everything that Michael Rada does in the core of everything that you do is a desire to help mankind, a desire to get away from this base wasting mentality. And I don't know if AI can deal with that. That would be an interesting comparison or program, especially if they'll hire you to participate.
I think that taking on from that AI is still the wrong term. It shouldn't be called artificial intelligence. It is just a mimicking machine. It will mimic it, so it will mimic you, and it may mimic you quite well. It may pick up on some of your speech patterns, but like Bill said, it won't be able to mimic your humanity. But it'll be interesting to see what it does come up with.
Yes, yes. And it would be of value to this group of people that you've tapped into, because I would assume one of their goals is to make AI, or whatever term we use, to make AI more sentient, more human, to close that gap, because that's the big Achilles heel that AI has right now.
One of the three generally was, I think he's a manager of a quite interesting art space or art gallery, or how to call it. I don't know how to call it. And there was a discussion about R and AI. And he said, you know, it's a long time already used by the people. We just don't see it because the results are generally perfect. And few hours ago, I just read some article that the most favoritized photographs on some, I don't know where, on social media, or I don't know where, I didn't read the details, has been made by AI. And we don't know about it. If you read the articles, there are many times, and if you try to track the author, you will realize these names do not exist at all. It's quite interesting. I see it frequently when I do my work, and this Industry 5.0 check generates takes me a lot of time, but it's quite interesting to read about it and see. But I will share with these three people. I will share for sure our conversation, and I hope it will help to. You know, I do not want to be digitalized. On the other hand, if it will help the result, I am, you know, I do not, there was a man in this 1968 generally, well, the Russians came to us, and he was a student, and he burned himself as a protest. His name was Palach. And, you know, I do not want to be killed just to be listened to. But a digitalization, it's a different approach, because I will stay as I am. There will be somebody with the same name next to me in a digital form, that's fine. But if it will help, I will go for it. And this will be my proposal, because you cannot compare it with somebody who is dead already, because he cannot do it. And the people who are in the field, they have this professional blindness. We have 2 more minutes, guys. So if you would like to say something more, 2 more minutes. Then we switch again to the original Google Meet.
Fascinating conversation, Michael, and Kevin, thank you.
I was just say one interesting thing. I can send it to you later, and if it's interesting, Michael, you can put it out. police in Bremen, they got a new piece of software to make photo fit pictures. And to test it out, they fed in a lot of details and a lot of images of Mozart. And this thing was so advanced that they could put in lifestyle. So you put in lifestyle, musician, age, and stuff like that. And the image this machine produced was so incredible. You did for the first time, because the paintings of Mozart, they're so stylized. You did for the first time look at somebody who looked like a real person. It's remarkably touching. I'll send it over to you. It really is amazing what this machine did. Because, of course, the machine didn't know Mozart, so it wasn't influenced in any way at all.
Kevin, in the 7 seconds we have left, did you use the term feral intelligence to describe feral, as in a feral cat?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So I would like to thank you, Kevin and Bill, for the next Wasteless World Talk. I hope it was interesting for everyone who will listen. And let me wish you all have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, free, and let's be visible, because this makes us human as well. Thanks a lot and see you next week. Bye-bye.